Then, Miklós, thank you so much for accepting my invitation for an interview, for a chat. And I don't want to take too much of your time. It has been a busy conference in Istanbul. It has been some busy time, and now you want to do some sightseeing. So I don't want to take too much of your time. So I will set up the 15 minutes for the timer, and we can have a conversation about things that I would maybe get your advice on. And this is all about that I want to get advice of some more senior mathematicians on things and how they think about mathematics as a profession, for example. So one thing that I want to ask is, like, you're different than some of the people that I have interviewed, that you wrote a lot of lecture books that people can learn things from, like directly learn things from. So how come it come to you that you wanted to write a book?
So I can answer in two different ways. When I was a student, I had a secondary interest in writing. I entered a national competition of writing very short commentaries about things in life, and I came in second in the country. The first place went to a professional writer, but that was in Hungarian. So then there was a big break in my writing career, so to speak, and then in 2001 I got a surprising email out of the blue from World Scientific asking if I wanted to write a book, and then it didn't take me long to decide. I said yes, and I enjoyed it. There are things in mathematics that I like, and then I would like if other people like them too.
Yeah, so I didn't know that a publishing house actually contacted you. And did they know about your writing career beforehand? Or?
No, I have no idea how they got to me, and in fact I didn't know the name World Scientific back then, so I wasn't sure, but then I looked them up and I noticed it was a respectable institution.
I think enumerative combinatorics got lucky with that the World Scientific decided to contact you.
Yeah, thank you for that. Also, another thing is that I'm sure you have seen some bad writing, and I have seen some bad writing when somehow the author doesn't think that the reader is a human being. And I thought that I will change that. In my books will be written for people.
I feel that way, and I don't want to point fingers, but some of the Yellow Book series of Springer is like so just raw, and it's all about just like encyclopedia type knowledge. It's just this follows that, that follows this.
Right, and so today that's becoming a bigger and bigger problem, because certainly readers have a lot of choice. They can do a lot with their time. So the author's job is first and foremost to convince the reader that it's a good investment of their time to read my book. You know, otherwise, why would they do that? There is so much to read out there.
Yeah. And would you, by any chance, say that your advisor Richard Stanley, former advisor Richard Stanley, having some enumerative combinatorics book, did it also encourage you to write a book?
Well, definitely. My goal with a walk through combinatorics, and then later with introduction to enumerative and analytic combinatorics, my goal was to prepare the readers for Stanley's book.
Oh, okay. So you just thought it's like the slope that would carry them to that level.
Right.
I see. Then yeah, I should definitely read your book once again to be at that level. So moving from the books, I want to ask something else. So this is a common question that I ask. Like, in your opinion, I collaborate with people and I try to be a good collaborator, but what makes a good collaborator in your opinion?
Oh, well, somebody who is constant, so who replies. I mean, when you say collaborator, I have to say that most of my collaborations were with people who were far away. So collaboration happens through email. So it's somebody who is constant, who is also complementing you in some ways. So you know some things, and the collaborator knows some other things, and therefore there's a higher chance that if one of you gets stuck, then the other one pulls you up.
So
also, if you are complementing each other, then probably your circles of professional connections are not identical. So the collaborator will introduce you to his or her friends and vice versa. So that helps too. And yeah, so I think that's maybe the single most important thing, that there of course has to be a big overlap between the two sets of interests, but they shouldn't be identical.
And yeah, I see. I feel the same way too, that there should be some differences in the tool set, so that when I'm stuck, the collaborator can take over, and the other way around. Yeah, we got interrupted, which is fine. Yeah. What about? Oh yeah, I have this question about the University of Florida, in a sense. So I got my PhD from that university, and you were a professor there. But our paths didn't really cross all that much. I mean, we knew each other, but do you think that it's because the size of the university, or do you think that it's or how can that be remedied, in a sense that more interaction in the department? Well, the department can be arranged.
That is difficult because yes, the university is big, and also people are busy in their own fields, and so it's just rare to find. It's difficult to find a time to have meaningful connections with people out from outside your field. So I guess maybe if sometimes there are talks by guest speakers who really straddle two fields, then there could be that researchers and students from those two communities attend the talk, and then that can be the start of something.
But even in our department, in the math department, I feel that the number theory group and combinatorics group share a lot of interests, to the point that I have given the combinatorial parts of my talk in the combinatorics seminar, right? But it's just that I wish there was more collaboration in between. Maybe.
Right. So that the number theory group was into the theory of partitions,
yes,
right? And in the combinatorics group, nobody really did, not just partitions, but also nobody did combinatorial number theory in general, which
yes,
is bigger than partitions.
That's true.
So the specialties were not really there, right?
Well, as you said, I think it's a complementing set of things. The interests are similar, and there are complementing set of tools.
Right. So I didn't see much overlap. That was maybe the problem.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, I definitely understand. And yeah, but I think the department is expanding, or is trying to expand to some extent, and maybe the gap will close over time.
That's always a possibility. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so. But over the years, and although I didn't interact too much with you, I think I interacted more with you after I got my PhD. Right. I interacted with your students, right? And I want to say, you have a lot of great students, but how do you find one? How do you find a student is compatible with you? Or
right. No, the student finds me. The student finds me. So
or maybe I should say, how do you understand that you two are compatible after the student finds you?
Right, so that is important. In fact, once I went to a workshop where we were taught over the weekend how to be good advisors. So there is a lot of responsibility there, because for a few years you will set the student's trajectory later in their career. So one thing I learned is that the rules have to be very clear. And it's important because up to that point where the student reaches the end of second year or early third year in his or her studies, then up to that point it was simple. If they did what they were told to do, they were more or less fine. If they did all the homeworks, they prepared for class, they were okay. Now, as you very well know, once you start doing research, it's not like that at all. Yeah. And in fact, the sentence I always tell my students is that you have to do things that I don't tell you to do. So from there on, it's about original research, and then maybe there's a little hint that though I'm not a complex analyst, but here knowing more complex analysis would help. but I already took a class on it and it's not enough, so I have to learn more about this particular area. How could I do that? Whom could I ask? What to read? And so this is a sequence of observations that the student has to do himself. And it's good to let the student know very early on that this is what is expected.
Oh, yeah. And yeah, whom to ask, like you said, I was really thinking of that I mean, yeah, PhD students should do their own work as they're learning, but being able to communicate or connect to other people also just creates new collaborations too.
Right, but also a lot of time could be saved if you are pointed right towards the latest results that might be helpful for you. I was lucky because my advisor, Richard Stanley, had an encyclopedic mind, and so he always knew what was done in the given subfield of a subfield of a subfield that I needed to learn.
I feel the same way for George Andrews, in a sense that every now and then I can ask, like, have you seen this identity before? And he can really give me the citation up to its year.
Right. Another important thing that the advisor has to do, of course, is to choose the very question on which the student will work. And then I have 3 criteria that the question has to satisfy. Of course, first it has to be interesting for the student, otherwise there will be no progress. Second, it will have to be interesting for other people, because otherwise nobody will read the results. And third, and that's the hardest, there has to be some chance for the student to solve it. So it has to be doable.
Like right at the border. It shouldn't be like many steps ahead of
right. So it should be something that is probably a relatively recent question that not too many people tried yet. Or maybe if it's not so recent, but there are now new tools that could be tried out on it.
I see. I can tell you in my PhD, we didn't start with directly with a project, or I was suggested a project, just as you said, that I didn't enjoy. That it was a method that I didn't want to play with. It was a circle method, and I couldn't make any progress. But once I found something more combinatorial that I enjoyed through seeing it in one of the seminars, my advisor, Professor Berkovich, was happy to just pivot me and said, like, okay, you can abandon everything that you have done and we can go in this direction if you like. Like, do you think that, maybe I can say, like, when in the PhD would you think that it's too late to pivot to a different direction?
Right, that's a good question. And
I'm sorry about this, by the way. I'm really asking this just in the off chance that I get a PhD student of my own. So
right. So, well, there are 2 things here, 2 fundamentally different scenarios. One is when the student doesn't get a result. So then I think after 4 months it's time to change, because otherwise, number 1, time will run out, but number 2, the student will lose confidence as well. Now, the other thing, if there is a result, then it could be that there is a result, but somehow it looks like there won't be any more results. Because, yeah, this is how far it goes, and then the methods that we have just cannot do more. Then I think it's time to start doing something else right away, because I mean the thesis requirements in most universities typically say that the thesis has to be equivalent to n publishable papers, where n is 2 or 3. But they don't say that those 2 have to be strongly connected. So we have probably both seen theses where 2 chapters were rather independent.
Just completely different?
Yeah. So in that case, when one result came out, then there will be probably not more than be happy that you had that one result and move on.
I see, yeah. But, it seems, maybe I can just ask this too. It seems that the combinatorics community seems to be really connected, maybe more so than the Q-series community in that sense. So, how do you sustain that? Like,
well, so no, the combinatorics is huge. Maybe
yeah.
you could say enumerative combinatorics. But even that is at least two different parts, because there are people who use analytic methods and people who use algebraic methods.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
let's say the analytic combinatorics community is connected, and yeah, so there are several annual conferences. So there is one in the summer, A of A, analysis of algorithms, and then there are other things throughout the year.
I see. Time runs out, but please go ahead.
And it's also good if there are some centers. So some people, where several people work on that field, and so then even when you just visit that place, you feel like you are at a conference, even though in fact you are just visiting a department, but there are so many people there in that field that you feel like that. So it's good to have a few go-to places. So also, I would say maybe 20 years ago, if somebody said, I work in analytic combinatorics, then it was not immediately obvious what that person meant. But today it's totally obvious, because Flageolet and Sedgwick wrote the book on it, literally. And some other fields don't have that. So when somebody says, I work on algebraic combinatorics, then that's not so clear what that means, because it could be that it's 90% combinatorics, but it also could be that it's 90% algebra.
Yep. Yeah.
So again, I would say what I said a minute ago, that it's good to have some go-to places.
And you're right, I was being a little ignorant, because I know just one portion of the combinatorics that is close to me, and yeah.
Right, and then there is extremal combinatorics, which is again completely different than the Hungarians.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having this conversation with me. And yeah, 15 minutes goes really fast, and we got interrupted once, which was a new take.
Thanks. It was fun.